Yes, I believe I am supposed to speak on three founding fathers: Auguste Comte, Herbert Spencer, and Emile Durkheim. He was the person who was credited with coining this word sociology. These five tenets or five characteristics they define scientific knowledge. Spencer says there are three laws of evolution. What is social fact? How suicide is a social fact. What is this law of three stages? What is positivity?
Welcome everyone in our today's lecture. We successfully conducted our last lecture which was on thinking sociologically, that was taken by Rajiv Dubey sir. Moving ahead, today is the birth anniversary of father of sociology, Auguste Comte, who made his contribution in the development of sociological perspective, and he also tried to create a new science of society which will not only explain the past of mankind but also predict its future course. So, on this great and auspicious day, we have decided to launch our lecture series, that is Evolution of Sociological Perspective, a specific paradigm of social sciences. And today is the first lecture, that is on the topic Foundation of Sociological Perspective, Auguste Comte, Herbert Spencer, and Emile Durkheim. For this we have Professor C.D. Adhikary sir from the Department of Sociology with us to deliver the lecture. Before that, there is a sort of information that I would like to share with all of you, that you can get connected. Officially, you can get connected with us by filling our membership forms. The links you can get through our WhatsApp groups, and also it's available on our social media platforms like Instagram. The members who will officially connect with us will get the privilege of getting the documented form of the lectures, and also they can join us in the post lecture discussions along with the team members. We have also done this, I think on last Saturday or Sunday we have done that. So now, without wasting much time, I would like to invite Sir to please offer the garland to Bahamana and light the lamp and start today's lecture. Sir, please. Sir. Now, I would like to invite Sir to please deliver the lecture, and also there will be a short Q&A session after the lecture where you can ask your queries or doubts related to the lecture. Sir, please.
Yes, I believe I am supposed to speak on three founding fathers: Auguste Comte, Herbert Spencer, and Emile Durkheim. Okay, so let's start with Auguste Comte, because today is his birthday also. This is the day on which he was born in France, and during his prime days, during his youth, and the time in which he was born, that was immediately after the experience of French Revolution. French Revolution, which was for liberty, fraternity, freedom, personality, etc., etc., and which was basically a rebellion or a protest against monarchy, church, and serfdom. Okay, so he was born into lot of social upheaval. Quite a chaos was prevailing at his time, at his young time. Okay, so it was but natural that he was very preoccupied with social disorder and how to rectify this into social order. So that was the dominant running theme across all his writings. Across all his writings, he has always been emphasized how to bring about social order. Social order. Because that was the only thing that was quite churning his mind. And probably the reason being he was born into disorder. At the time in which he was born, French society was going through a lot of transition. Okay. Prior to Auguste Comte, all of us know he is the father of sociology, so-called father of sociology. Not the only father, there are so many fathers, but sociology is not an illegitimate child. But he was the person who was credited with coining this word sociology from two words, sosos and logos. Initially it was social physics because at that point of time the prevailing paradigm of knowledge was science. Science was enjoying a privileged position in the knowledge system of France as well as most of European societies. So science is thought to be the standard of ultimate knowledge. Ultimate knowledge. Science is the only truth. Whatever science produces is the knowledge. Rest are speculation, theology, philosophy, or religion. So it was but natural that Auguste Comte wanted to develop a science of society in line with other established natural sciences. That is why he initially called it social physics, because he had an idea that like the universal laws of physics as a natural science, we can have, and it is possible to have, social laws, universal laws, which will also explain social order and disorder. Or rather, it will explain social disorder, and in the meanwhile, it will suggest ways how to restore social order. Okay? So, in today's time, contemporary time, it might sound out of place to copy science and mold sociology in the mold of natural sciences. Because we have moved from 1798 to 2023, long time. Nowadays, social scientists feel that it is futile now to talk of natural sciences. Because natural sciences has been proved time and again to be not the ultimate or absolute truth. Even science and scientific knowledge also changes over time. Therefore, there is no knowledge which is absolute. But at that point of time, science was thought to be the absolute knowledge, and sociology ought to be established like a natural science as a science of society. Okay, and science very hazily defined at that point of time. I think for the first time, science came to be clearly defined by a person called Thomas Kuhn, The Structure of Scientific Revolution, if you have read it. And probably another book by Wallace and Wallace, What is this thing called science? These debates belong to the area of philosophy of knowledge. Philosophy of knowledge. They debate that science itself is relative. It is not absolute knowledge. Okay. Therefore, it is futile to talk of any social science subject in line with natural sciences. But But this was not the case at the time of Auguste Comte, but it was that therefore it was but natural. Auguste Comte wanted a subject of society which will be like the established natural sciences. And he built a hierarchy of sciences on the basis of three criteria: generalizability, complexity, and positivity. Okay? So I'll come to what is positivism and all. So he says those sciences who have achieved positivity early, he constructed a hierarchy of sciences kind of, all of you must have heard of. So Auguste Comte constructed a hierarchy of sciences at the bottom of which was mathematics, followed by astronomy, followed by physics, followed by chemistry, followed by biology, and at the top of the hierarchy he kept sociology. So this hierarchy is on the basis of three criteria: how general the science is, the subject is, how what is the other thing I said? Complexity. How complex the subject is, and how positive the subject is. Those sciences who are very positive, complex, and specific, not very general, they are kept at the bottom of the hierarchy, and one follows another in the hierarchy, one above the other, like mathematics, astronomy, physics, biology, chemistry, biology, then sociology. Okay. So for him, biology and sociology are very close cousins, because sociology has a lot of things to borrow from biology. Okay. And he said, what is positivity? Positivity is a method of science. To be positive science means to produce knowledge which is empirical. Empirical means knowledge that comes to us through our sense perception. Before that, we have had a lot of knowledge, theoretical theology, philosophy, religious books, priests, church, so many people, monarchy were dominating our social life in French society. So he said these are not knowledge. Only source of knowledge is empiricism. That is, anything that is knowable and we can know only through our five sense organs. To see is to believe. If we cannot see something, we cannot believe. Like say the idea of heaven or hell or whatever. So because these cannot be observed through our sense perception, therefore they cannot be positive knowledge, or the knowledge about heaven, knowledge about gods and goddesses, they cannot be positive knowledge. Okay? So, in order to be a knowledge, true knowledge, it must be observable through our sense perceptions. Then, in addition to observability, a knowledge should be verifiable through the same kind of observation. If a knowledge is produced by me, then the same knowledge should be subjected to scrutiny and verification by others with the help of same observation and sense perception. And if after verification the knowledge is proved to be true, then we can say it is an established scientific knowledge. Okay, but observation, verification, they are not enough. In addition to observation and verification, there must be comparison. Okay. And in addition to comparison, there must be experimentation. In addition to experimentation, there must be historical methods. Okay. So, history, comparison, experimentation, verifiability, observability. These five tenets or five characteristics, they define scientific knowledge, or to take his term, positive knowledge. So positive and science, they are almost coterminous. Coterminous. Okay. They are used in the synonymous sense. Science stands for positivity and positivity stands for science. So positive knowledge or positivism is about scientific methods. Okay. I ask many students what is positivism. They say it is one branch of knowledge. But conceptually, it talks of as a method of knowing is positivism. And later on, in due course, towards the end of Comte's life, he started propagating positivism as another alternative religion. He said religion. It is religion and it is the religion of modern humanity. Modern humanity. Okay. Why he speak about modern it is a religion of modern humanity? Because at that point of time, given the kind of backdrop in which he was born, he was writing, he was perceiving and experiencing, at that point of time, religion had a major say in everyday life. Nothing about human life and individuals' everyday living is beyond the spell of church and monarchy. So church used to touch upon every aspect of our life. So he thought, probably because we are used to religion as a unifying force, so instead of a theological church, if I propose positivism as another new religion, and this religion is for modern human community, human society, then probably people will accept it and pursue it, practice it, and a new kind of social order based on science and modernity will emerge. Okay. Initially, there were followers across Europe, but it did not have much success. Later on, people fell out with Auguste Comte. Auguste Comte had a very miserable life in his life. He has never joined any university. He has never joined as a professor anywhere. Much of his ideas are extempo, self-written journal articles and books, and they have had a controversial career. Many people debated it, many people contested it. There was lack of acceptance. However, after Comte passed away, they become the cardinal basis of a whole disciplinary architecture called sociology. During his time, it was not that popular an idea, positivism and hierarchy of sciences and etc. etc. Another important thing on which we discussed Comte was about law of three stages. Law of three stages. Okay. What is this law of three stages? He says that all societies, like all individuals, they go through constant changes every moment. So societies are not given. Societies are not something destined and dictated by God. It is rather a reality which people themselves construct and change for themselves. So change is a continuous thing. Therefore, he divided the whole reality, whole human reality, whatever we experience in our life, into two domains: social static and social dynamic. Okay. Social dynamic is the change part, static is the order part. Unless there is order, no change is meaningful, and no order is meaningful without change. So they go together, order at the same time a changing order, social order. Okay. And he says that all societies go through three stages of evolution, or three stages of transformation. He never spoke of evolution. Okay. So this transformation is a continuous thing, constant thing in our life. Every society across the world, they go through these three stages. Because as I said, he was the predominant preoccupation was to construct universal laws about society, like natural sciences, which has grand established laws, unchangeable laws, which are universally true. Universally true means if it is true for an Indian thing, if it is true in India, then it is also true in Europe, it is also true in America. But for society and social structure, you cannot have law which are universally applicable. What is true of Indian society may not be true of families in America, may not be true of families in Europe. However, at that point of time, the aim was to construct social laws, universal laws, which will be applicable to societies across geography and cultures, and that will make for establishment of sociology as a firm social science like other established natural sciences. Okay, that was the idea. Therefore, this law of three stages is again an example of Comte's aim to construct universal laws. And he says all societies across geography and cultures, they invariably go through three stages of transition. Three stages of transition. Okay. And it is not necessary that all societies are going through same stages of transition at one point of time. Different societies one society can be at stage 1, moving into stage 2. Another society can be at stage 3, the final stage of transition. Another society may be at a position where it is yet to enter into the transitional phase. It is static and normal and gradually preparing itself to transition. Okay. So he says these three stages are theological stage, metaphysical stage, and scientific positive stage. Okay. In theological stage, life, society, reality is said to be a gift of divinity, a gift of God. Everything is given by God. So, the representative of God on earth, the monarch and the priest, they are the deciders. They decide everything, all aspects of our life. Okay. And these, he also had a chronological scheme of things. Like these kind of theological societies, they were there since say around 1100 AD to 1400 AD, for example. And from when theology reached its maturity, reached its saturation point, where people started wondering, okay, everything is divine and everything is given by God, so God is supreme, we should be afraid of God, we should not do this, do that, whatever is prescribed by the church, priest and monarch and etc. etc. We cannot defy the monarch because monarchy is a direct representation of God on earth. So we cannot defy God, therefore we cannot defy monarchy, things like that. These ideas in course of time started being questioned. People start asking questions about this firm idea of God and theology. Is there any God? Who has seen God? Why should we attribute everything to God? These kind of questions being asked increasingly after a point of time in history. So once these questions are asked, gradually the predominant idea of God, divinity and theology and the theologians, their importance start diminishing. People start ascribing different reality around them to abstract forces, or what he calls metaphysical forces. Metaphysical means we know why there is a loud sound from here, from this mic. We definitely know it is not a creation of God. Bhagwan ye kara nahi raha hai. There is some force involved in getting this done. But as of now, we do not understand that force. Maybe in course of time, we are in a position to understand what make these equipments sound louder. But definitely it is not God. Okay. So this was the work of God. Now this become not a work of God. So we are moving from theological society to metaphysical society, metaphysical stage. Okay. Then as time passes, when everything around us started being questioned, people started, once there are questions, there will be search for answers. And this search for answer takes us to the next stage, the scientific positive stage, where there is direct observation, direct discovery and invention of truth with the help of methods of science, that is positivism. Okay. So, Samaj, a community and society starts from theological stage, then moves to metaphysical stage, then from there on, the ultimate stage of culmination, ultimate stage beyond which there is no other stage, that is the stage of science, modernity and positivism. Okay, so this he prescribes as a universal rule where societies across geographies, across culture, across places will definitely go through, invariably go through, but at variable points of time. They invariably go through it, but at variable points of time. All of them are not transiting in the same speed, same direction everywhere. Okay. Different societies will experience transition at differently at different points of time. That was the idea. So, regarding Auguste Comte, he is called the father of sociology because he was the first one to coin the word. He was the first one to build a subject, a science about social life, because he was preoccupied with social order, how to bring back order in social life. That was the preoccupation, because he was born into a lot of chaos and disorder. Okay, and his life itself was very miserable and disorderly. Okay, why I am talking of his life, personal life? Because who we are, what we do, is also a consequence of where we are in. If I am in BHU, I will be somebody. If I am in JNU, I will be somebody else. If I am somewhere else, I will be somebody else. We are product of our circumstances. The circumstances we find ourselves, that tells us what is best for me to do. That is why science is being criticized. Those who criticize science, who says even hardcore scientific knowledge, physical laws, the chemical permutations and combinations, all are subjective. Nothing of them is absolute, because the scientist who is producing this knowledge is also a part of his circumstance, and his circumstance decides what he is researching on or what kind of conclusion he will reach at. Okay, if a scientist chooses to work on cancer and comes out with some brilliant solution to cancer, the solution is fine, but why cancer? That question is answered by a story which is not known to us, the public, because his mother was died out of cancer, so he decided that I will work on cancer. So, cancer instead of kidney was a choice which is subjective. When the choice of the problem is subjective, the solution cannot be objective. Therefore, scientific subjects and scientific solutions, they are never ever objective. Everything is subjective. It is a kind of defense for social science also. Social science says we cannot be completely objective. But science claims that they are objective. If we can prove that science itself is subjective, so there is no question of objective knowledge. All knowledge is subjective. So it is a kind of defense of social science and sociology in particular, that nothing is objective. So if you are subjective, still you are called a science. So I am also subjective, but I can claim also I am a science. The fight is our claiming who is a science and who is not a science. But even Auguste Comte also, acknowledging that sociology should be the new science of society, does acknowledge that it can be a science of society only to a limited extent. Because unlike in natural sciences, who can perform lab experimentations, we cannot perform experimentation on society and social life. We cannot kill somebody to find out what is the impact of death on family or what is the impact of death on livelihood. We cannot do that. Therefore, we can do only to a very limited extent what science claims is experimentation. We can do controlled experimentation. And controlled experimentation opportunities are given to us, not always. We cannot create these opportunities. Whenever there is an opportunity, we can do that. Say, for example, there is a natural disaster in the campus. Suddenly, the whole hierarchy of the campus life get disturbed. Everybody is on road. The registrar is on road, the vice chancellor is on the road, students are also on the road, teachers are also on the road. So everything is helter-skelter. There we have an opportunity on what is the impact of a disaster on hierarchies of power and relations. Say, for example, I have a question: if I disturb the hierarchy of BHU, what will be its impact on student life, student community? So maybe that the disaster will give us an opportunity to experiment on that. But we cannot cause a disaster, create a disaster in order to know what is the impact of disaster on student community life. Therefore, experimentation in social science and sociology is of limited scope. We cannot every now and then experiment as in sciences on social life of people. Instead, limited experimentation opportunities and historico-comparative method will help us arriving at universal laws which will be applicable to social life. Historico-comparative method was another important aspect of Comtean methodological prescription of positivism. Okay, how do I know? How do people used to live in medieval times? Suppose my question is, what was the nature and structure of society in medieval times? Okay, I cannot go back to medieval time. I cannot time travel and go back to medieval times. What I do, different societies across the world are at different stages of development. Say, for example, so some societies are highly developed, highly industrialized, modernized. Some societies are still living in the dark ages. So this provides us an opportunity that let me compare a society in Africa and a society in America and see how life has become qualitatively different, or how social life was in times prior to modernity. Are you getting my point? So either I have experimentation in a limited way, or I can have the same result also by comparing two peoples at different points of time or at different places. So in order to compensate for lack of ability to do experiment in social science and sociology, this can be compensated by our advantage of using comparison, historic comparison, as well as limited experimentation. So we can be a limited natural science in that sense. However, the aim was to establish sociology as a firm science of society, as at par with the established natural sciences. Okay. Now, should I move on to the next one? Yes.
Sir, hierarchy of science आपने defined किया, in which the sociology has put at the top level, and before that the biology. If we study the definition of sociology, it is stated that the study of society which is constructed by human. Biology is something related to human, Then why sociology is previously called as social physics rather than calling as social biology?
As I said, because the idea was to mold a science of society like other established natural sciences like physics and mathematics, particularly. Because physics and mathematics were the most developed disciplines at his time. Biology was just emerging, just a emerging science at that point of time. Therefore, he said that biology is close to sociology in terms of complexity, in terms of general applicability, in terms of positivity. Because biology was at its infancy, so the establishment of positive methods in biology was not fully developed. Like in sociology, it is positivism and positive use of positivist method is just being started as a new discipline. So also was the case with biology. In terms of generalizability, complexity and positivity, these sciences differ from each other in different degrees. That is why biology is closer to sociology. Is it clear? Not yet?
Sir, rather than calling it social physics, why we not call it social biology?
Why didn't he call it social biology?
Huh.
Because he wanted sociology to be like a physics. Like okay, there are some authors write like this, that at that point of time physics was such a dominant science, so firmly established. All branches of knowledge, they somehow or other used to use, abuse and misuse the term physics in their nomenclature. Okay. Like at that point of time there was physics, there was mineral physics, there was chemical physics, there was disease physics, there was theology physics. So every subject, every branch of knowledge used to use the word physics either as a prefix or a suffix in the name of in the nomenclature. Therefore, he also thought that I can also copy with liberty the word physics and construct a science of society like physics. That was the idea. Maybe we never lived in his time. What made him think of social physics? These are possible explanations, and you will find many versions in many books on this. So this was the earliest idea to construct a science of society, a science of society. Okay, and the reason for constructing such science of society was the preoccupation with the issue of social order. How to retrieve and re-establish order in society, a society that has been ravaged by the horrors of French Revolution, the horrors of years of monarchy and church, dominance of church. Okay. So why sociology came into being? Because in order to establish order in society. Okay. And from then on, sociology has always been blamed to be a conservative science. It is always status quoist. It always aims at not retrieving, establishing and sustaining the social order in the name of social structure. It says social structure is important, and structure is what? Structure is a stable order. So social order is very important. Even if there have been different kinds of sociology in course of time, phenomenological sociology, leftist sociology, Marxist sociology, functionalist sociology, all of them have been more or less attached to the idea of order and structure, a kind of fixity, They are fixed with the idea of order and structure. Unless there is a structure in place, a stable order in place, society is not possible. Okay. Probably the only exception being the leftist sociology, Marxist sociology, who normally say they are also preoccupied with order, but they say that the present order, the established order, is not for the benefit of the mass, not for the benefit of the proletariat. Therefore, this order has to be overthrown, and then a new order has to be brought in. The order of communism, which they call it communism. Communism is again the name of another social order, another stability, another stable society of a different kind. So the birth of sociology is to re-establish or establish social order, peace, harmony and stability in society. Okay, and from then on, sociology has been, and it is truly is, a conservative science, where we are more concerned about establishing order, stability and harmony rather than talking about change, conflict and differences. Okay. Now, Auguste Comte was born 1798, 1857. Okay. And few years after Auguste Comte, Herbert Spencer in UK, United Kingdom, England, he started his career. Okay. So Herbert Spencer was almost a contemporary of Auguste Comte, just came later after Comte passed away. And he was a prominent European sociologist in England. So Herbert Spencer is known for different kind of sociology. Different kind of sociology. Herbert Spencer had a very privileged aristocratic family background. He is well educated, had many opportunities to be with the leading academia of his time. And during his interaction with many, he was under the influence of Charles Darwin, who was credited with writing the book Origin of Species, 1859. Okay. So Herbert Spencer thought of building a universal theory, building a universal law of evolution that will explain how societies are born and how they negotiate the course of change over time. That is what he called social evolution. Social evolution. Okay. Evolution is particularly indicates a gradual change in something, a kind of unfolding of somebody's potential which is inherent. It doesn't come from outside, it is within us, and from within it unfolds itself. That is the process of evolution. Herbert Spencer says societies evolve. They evolve. And they evolve from simple, undifferentiated, homogeneous state to complex, differentiated and heterogeneous state. Okay. We started in simple societies, then from simple societies, in course of time, with time, societies grow, populations grow and become more and more complex. More and more complex. And this is a universal law of evolution, true for all societies. All societies. Again, another attempt to build grand universal theories. Grand universal theories. Nowadays, nobody talks of grand universal theories because everybody is convinced sociology can never ever have a grand theory which is true for societies of any time to come, of any place. Okay, all sociological theories has to be grounded, middle range, located and situated in a particular place and community. Okay, but it may sound out of place right now, but at that point of time when sociology was about to take birth, the preoccupation of all the founding fathers has been how to build grand universal theories that are unchanging and universally applicable to all societies. That will make it acceptable by the academia and the intelligentsia. That okay, this is a new science, this is a fully established new branch of knowledge. That was the idea. How to establish sociology as a new branch of knowledge. Okay. So Spencer says there are three laws of evolution. One is persistence of force. Second is indestructibility of matter. Third is continuity of motion. Okay, these may sound little conjectural. It is little complicated, but most of these ideas are borrowed ideas from the origin of species. Okay. As the origin of species is about organisms, animals, and many things, including organic and inorganic, he wanted to have another theory of evolution exclusively for society and social life. That is why he calls it theory of evolution, social evolution. Okay. Persistence of force, that there is a force inherent in every society which propels it, which pushes it towards change, towards further development. It is not that somebody is doing it. It is inherent in the body, inherent in the thing to change itself. That is persistence of force. Second law is indestructibility of matter. Something that changes becomes another thing. It is not that this initial one, something, is completely destroyed and in its place a new thing takes part. The same thing transforms itself into a new thing. The matter remains the same. So matter is indestructible. It cannot be destroyed. It can change form. It can change and transform. But it cannot be destroyed. It cannot be made to end abruptly. No matter can end. Every matter can change and transform. But it cannot be destroyed. Third law is continuity of motion. So this reality of force and indestructibility of matter combined together create a motion in society. A motion, a propulsion, a propensity towards change and transformation, towards evolution. And this is a continuous process. So, in our common language, evolution is a continuous process. It is caused by certain inherent forces, and new things are nothing but new wine, old wine in new bottles. Or, I am not talking of common languages. That is the same thing which has changed its form and has ended up as a new thing. Okay. So these are the three laws on the basis of which societies change from simple, undifferentiated, homogeneous state where everything looks similar, everybody thinks similar, everybody lives in the same way, to in different degrees, to kind of societies which are differentiated, where people are unlike each other, which are more complex, where there is complex division of labor, and which are heterogeneous. People are not like each other. Homogeneous, heterogeneous. Homogeneous means similar, heterogeneous means dissimilar. Okay. And he also arrives at this kind of universal law of social evolution by drawing a kind of comparison between organic bodies and the body social. The body social. Okay. In other words, he says society is like any organic body, any organism, like an organism which has a body, a whole body, and this whole body consists of many parts. Okay. And these parts perform defined and specific functions for the survival of the whole body. But however, these parts did not happen on one single day. To start with, we started as one cell animal, and from there on our cells multiplied, then our different organs came up, hands were built like what happens in the fetus of a womb. Okay. We started from a single cell to become a complex body. Similarly, societies also start as simple societies, and in course of time they evolve out of their own existence into complex bodies. Okay. Another element in the backdrop in which Spencer was born is important for building this grand theory of evolution or evolutionism, is that he was a nonconformist in his life, like his father and the family background he comes from. They were nonconformist, atheists, non-religious believers, and they were a strong advocate of laissez-faire economics, which emphasizes complete individual autonomy. Instead of state autonomy, it argues in favor of individual autonomy, laissez-faire economy, free economy, state control free economies. Okay. So the idea is to say that if state and the church leave the general society out of its regulatory purview, then society is endowed with large potential to develop itself. State or the church, we don't need state and the church to develop society. Are you getting my point? Yes. So he was just arguing that state and church must stay away from social life. Let the individual members of society enjoy as much freedom as they can, because it is not God nor the state who is giving them the capacity to develop. Rather, the capacity to develop is inherent in them. It is from within. It is already existing within them as a social organism, like a general organism. A social organism or body social is blessed with capacity to develop itself, to evolve out of simple towards complex and modern society. So state and church should stay away from regulating society and social life. Okay. Is there any other concept given by Spencer? This is about Spencer. So again, in the first case, we saw Comtean obsession with constructing universal laws of 3 stages and prescribing a universal method of positivism for all sciences, and particularly for the science of society. In Spencer, we again saw a kind of obsession with building a grand theory of social evolution which can explain change, transition, as well as order in societies across the globe. Okay. So they were trying to build laws which can be applied to everybody, all societies. That was the idea. Coming to Durkheim, Durkheim came later on, even later than Comte and Spencer, a French. Durkheim again is a French sociologist, and he had a different take on how to establish sociology as a autonomous and independent discipline, independent from other established natural and social sciences. He also wanted sociology to be like a natural science, to be like a science proper. There was no idea of social science then. We are talking of social science now. At that point of time, either it is natural science or no science. Only science that is possible is natural science, because they have developed certain kind of method which can be applied only to natural objects, and that those methods cannot be applied to social objects or things or reality which we experience in our everyday social life. So sociologists or the founding fathers has a very urgent task of devising some method which can give them a distinct advantage over natural sciences and prove that okay, there can be a science can be possible also about social life, social reality. Okay. So Durkheim started with the premise that this can be possible. Sociology can be established as an independent science only when its subject matter, instead of becoming all inclusive, like we are talking of everything, instead of talking of everything, we must be very specific about what will be the things which can be and should be studied by sociology. Okay? And he comes out, he wrote many things, on many things. He wrote on law, division, do travel, division of labor, Lee suicide, a monograph on suicide, and rules of sociological method, and then again Protestant ethics by Weber. Elementary forms of religious life. Okay, these are some of his prominent works. Okay. So throughout these works, he propagated a new idea that sociology must have a very specific subject of study, and this specific subject of study is what he calls social fact. Social fact. What is social fact? Social fact is something, he defines social fact like this. Social fact is something which has a real existence outside us and at the same time constraining us. Okay? Suppose, say for example, traffic rules, for example. All of us are driving on the road, and at the same time we don't see traffic rules written anywhere, but all of us are aware of traffic rules. That there are rules which regulate our driving practices. Okay, and these rules are outside us. We have not framed them. Some agencies have framed them. And who are these agencies? The state agencies. Who is the state? We have created the state, and we have entrusted with them with the power to make laws and apply them on us. Okay. So these traffic laws, rules are external to us. At the same time, they are constraining us. They are always at the subconscious level. They are always there in our mind that we have to drive this, we have to drive that. We have to drive to our left, we have to stop at the traffic signal, we have to stop if police stops us, we have to carry license and all necessary documents while driving, etc. etc. So these are some of the rules that are always in the back of our mind while driving. and these rules are in a way government rules, not my rules or your rules or the driver's rules. Okay. So traffic rule is a classic example of how they are external to the individual and at the same time constraining the individual. Okay. Let's take a more social example. Suppose, say for example, we are a place, we have a defined way of living, and there is a general consensus among us. I said general, not individual. As an individual, I may love to walk around the campus, go to classroom with trousers or half pants or t-shirts or nothing, just a pant at least. But there is a consensus that how classes are to be conducted, how students are expected to behave, what are our etiquettes, all of us know what is etiquette, ways of doing things, ways of doing business, everyday business. Okay. What to wear, what not to wear, what to wear and what not to wear. What are these? ये सब क्या है? कहाँ है? But they are there. Nobody can see them, but they are there. This emerges from a kind of general consensus in the place and the community in which we are living. There is a general consensus on this: what to eat, how to wear, where to go, how to talk, etc., etc. Etiquettes. Okay. And once there is a deviation from this etiquette, others react punitively, and the person who is deviating, unless he is a shameless person, next time he does this, he has to think twice. अगर मैं ऐसा फील करूँगा तो हो सकता है लोग पकड़ के पीट ना दे. So these unseen, invisible etiquettes, manners, rules of the game framed by Sanskriti, Parampara, they are there. Even if we don't see them, we can experience them. However, they are not subject to amendment and correction by any individual. You cannot interfere with them. Generally, as an individual. Maybe collectively, if everybody wants that all students in BHU, there should be a few wine shops in BHU inside the campus, and everybody is allowed with a mug of beer in the classroom. So that is another thing. If the whole community decides, that's a different matter. But one individual student cannot change these established manners, customs and traditions. Okay. So these manners, traditions and customs are in reality external to us. They live somewhere outside the individual. And at the same time, we are afraid of them. We are scared of ordinarily violating them. Okay? So, etiquettes, tradition, manner, they have the weight to be defined, to be categorized as social fact. Something which is beyond the individual and at the same time exerting certain pressure for conformity. Okay. Why sociology should study social fact? Because he says that social fact is the legitimate subject matter of sociology, because this is something which can be objectively studied, which can be studied from outside. It is not a feeling, it is not a subjective judgment, it has a reality, it has a social reality. We can experience it, we can discover that this is something which is constraining the individual, constraining the individual. Okay. Like say, for example, our etiquettes about sex, companionship, friendship, dating, so-called dating. We don't have dating so far. Dating is not acceptable here. Not acceptable here. And this might be true from a small place, like Banaras, Mirzapur and all, a small pocket. The same thing might be acceptable somewhere else. Like I have seen many campuses, very liberal campuses, where everything is free. Everything is free. Okay? And I have seen Banaras campuses, Kasi campus, changing over time. From only girls or only boys on bikes or cycles to mixed riders. Etiquettes can change, but if they change, the change is, Durkheim in a sense do not explain change. They say, okay, things will change, but how they change, there is inadequate explanation for that. However, he is more concerned about how the unchanging tradition cannot be changed by any individual. Individual is hopeless, helpless. He is just a subject of the collective. So here, there a question comes between the relationship between individual and society. Individualistic theories of society say it is the sum total of individuals. Sum total of individuals. Collectivistic theories of society says, okay, society is a collection of individuals, but it is not the sum total of individuals. The sum total of individuals as a collective becomes qualitatively something different and becomes very superior to the individual, where individual cannot change the collectivity in the capacity of an individual. Okay? So collectivity as a reality, it is a social fact. Sociology must study social fact, and because social facts are external, they can be studied objectively, like the subject matter of natural sciences, who can study matter objectively by detaching oneself from the object. If I am studying this bottle, I see this bottle as a thing, something which exists outside me. But tradition, it is inside me. I have internalized that tradition, and at the same time, it is not possible to see tradition, my tradition, from my eyes. But I can see the weight of tradition, the presence of tradition, by observing others. How that tradition is constraining you to conform to certain pattern, conform to certain manners, conform to certain etiquettes. Okay, I may not see my tradition, but you also share the same tradition as part of one single community. So I can study tradition as a social fact by keeping myself away from you and looking at you, how tradition is pressuring you, pushing you down to conform to certain patterns. Okay. So social fact is the subject matter of sociology because it can be studied objectively. And if it can be studied objectively, like sciences, natural sciences, sociology will also become another natural science of society. Again, natural science. Okay. This is all about rules of sociological method. Then his studies of division of labor in society, which was his doctoral thesis, division of labor in society. He said four concepts are important in all these things. In division of labor in society, he talks of two kind of solidarity in society and talks of collective conscience. Collective conscience. These are some of the terms that are important. He says societies across time can have two kinds of solidarity. They are called mechanical solidarity and organic solidarity. Okay? So mechanical solidarity is a solidarity derived from similarness. Similarness. Like in simple societies, small tribal communities, all members of the society look similar, think similar, taste similar, believe similar, so they are more or less alike. So the unity, the solidarity among them is almost mechanical and automatic. Almost mechanical and automatic. If I am like you, if there is no difference between you and me, so it is easier to bond with you, to be with you, because we belong to the same class, same type. Therefore, here solidarity is automatically manufactured, or it comes automatically or mechanically. Therefore, he calls it mechanical solidarity. In complex advanced societies, people are not similar to each other. There are a lot of differences. There are a lot of no two individuals are doing the same thing. They may think differently. They may have different tastes, different culture, and maybe at some point of time even different religions. So here there has to be some solidarity. No society is possible without solidarity. The kind of solidarity that we find in modern society, he names it organic solidarity, where there is cooperation and harmony between differentiated or unlike parts. In mechanical solidarity, cohesion and harmony is between similar parts. In organic solidarity, cohesion, solidarity and unity is between non-similar parts. Okay. And how non-similar parts will cooperate and share the same harmony with each other, that is something we don't find enough evidence in Durkheimian sociology. But however, he believes that even in organic solidarity, even if there are differences, still people has to have a minimum cooperation and harmony in order for the society to sustain. Therefore, for the sake of sustainability, there must be some kind of solidarity, and he calls this solidarity organic solidarity. Okay. Then he talks of another term called collective conscience. Collective conscience, he defines this way, is the sum total of, is a body of beliefs and sentiments shared by average people in a society. Beliefs and sentiments shared by average people in society. Okay, what does it mean? As I said, we know what is right and what is wrong, and we are under obligation, under pressure to always do things which are right. Okay, where does this standards of right and wrong come from? It comes from the collective conscience. Durkheim says that as individuals have consciousness, so also a group, a collectivity, a society also has consciousness. Okay. However, there is a fine difference. In individual, the consciousness is concentrated in certain part of the body, our mind, our conscious mind. So here, the consciousness is concrete. Whereas in the case of communities and societies, consciousness is diffused. It is diffused among the members. However, the consciousness put together, which is diffused among the members, becomes qualitatively different from the consciousness of the constituent parts. I, you and all of us constitute this classroom. All of us might have different opinion about different issues. However, as a group, as a large collectivity gathered together in one place or living together in one place, must have certain degree of shared consensus about or shared understanding about majority of issues that affect us in our social life. Okay? Unless there is some degree of shared consensus in society, which also produce the sum total of collective conscience, society cannot be possible. And this collective conscience, because there is collective conscience, that itself is a social fact, because it exists outside us and constraining us always, is also and legitimately the subject matter of sociology. So Durkheim says, because we have established specifically an exclusive subject matter for sociology, therefore sociology is now in a better position to frame itself as at par with other natural sciences. Okay? And he demonstrated this in his study of suicide, Lee suicide. That's a monograph he wrote, and here he compared rates of suicide across Europe in different countries at different points of time, and came to conclusion that suicide is a social fact. Okay. They say suicide is an individual act. Somebody kills oneself, or a group of people, if it is collective suicide, a group of people decide to kill themselves. Okay? So apparently it is an individual act. It is an individual act. But he says that it cannot be understood as an individual act or something which can be explained by the psychology of the individual. Rather, suicide being apparently an individual act is essentially a social act. Who is behind the suicide? It is not the individual, but the society in which he lives is responsible to commit suicide or prevent them from not committing suicide. How? He divides suicide into 4 categories. Okay? Egoistic suicide. Egoistic, altruistic, anomic, and fatalistic. Okay. He says suicide, though apparently is an event, there are also different types of suicide. Okay. He said there are 4 types. Egoistic suicide is one where individual, because of lack of integration with the rest of his fellow man in the community, commits suicide, becomes highly egoistic, becomes highly focused on self instead of everybody, and then commits suicide in frustration. Okay? Altruistic suicide, where individuals or collectives who are very tightly integrated with the others, with the community, with the collectivity, they commit suicide out of their love for the community, out of their love for the community. He gives an example of sati pratha, where satis essentially commit suicide, but do they commit suicide for themselves? No, because of pratha, because of the weight of tradition and their unwavering loyalty to the tradition. That हम अपना सब कुछ जान दे सकते हैं लेकिन ट्रेडिशन खत्म नहीं हो सकता, अपना ट्रेडिशन को बचाना है. So because of excess integration with the society, social tradition, they commit suicide, and he calls it altruistic suicide. Okay? Anomic suicide. So these suicides happen when there is, society does have a stable social order. In the first case, individual fails to reconcile himself with the existing social order, therefore he commits suicide. In the second case, individual is highly reconciled with the established social order, therefore he commits suicide. In anomic case is case where there is absence of social order. It so happens sometime that the order of the society, the order in which a society is organized and structured, sometimes gets disturbed. sometimes gets disturbed. And it can get disturbed by many factors, including the event of a disaster, as I said, as I gave an example, or some unforeseen, unpredictable event in the public life. So once this order is disturbed, everybody feels restless. Everybody feels restless. Because Durkheim gives two kinds of examples. Suppose, say, in times of economic distress, lying, stealing, killing, everything becomes normal. Society experiencing this stress of economic regression or recession is not in a position to accommodate individual anxiety, individual aspirations, or address individual grievances. In this situation, individuals become more and more hopeless because there is nobody to support. I have lost my job, I have nothing to eat, my family has left me. There are so many crises all around. So what I do? I commit suicide. This is because there is a failure of social order. People commit suicide. But not only in economic times of economic distress, even in times of economic boom also, where there is huge high-speed growth, we are experiencing multiple development at the same time in a very short span of time. That also creates pressure and break down the social order. How? There is a tempo in social life. Everybody knows in 10 years' time I'll be a millionaire, in 20 years' time I'll be a billionaire. Okay. If I become millionaire in a week time, what do? I'll simply do whatever my basic instincts tell me to do. Like what happens in Gurgaon few years back. They sold properties, landed property, and achanak farmers who had nothing to eat next morning, they have big imported SUVs at their house. And that has been the hub of all criminal activities by now. I think by now situation might have changed. At one point of time, there was a hotbed of crime and big gangsters colonizing certain parts of different areas, and they have divided the whole area into this is my ilaka, this is your ilaka, big vehicles, big cars, a lot of wealth, all of a sudden overnight. That also creates havoc. That also disturbs the social order. So either in times of boom, or in times of distress, or in times of disaster, for some reason or other, if the social order breaks down suddenly, that also creates the propensity, the tendency towards suicide, or what Durkheim calls pseudogenic impulse. That is called anomic suicide. Okay? Then comes fatalistic. What is fatalistic suicide? Somebody? Any hint?
Farmers committing suicide.
Farmers committing suicide can be breakdown or anomie. A situation of anomie. Distress. Fatalistic suicide is all cases of suicide where people tend to kill themselves in the face of excessive regulation by the society, which reinforces hopelessness among people. Say, for example, slaves committing suicide. Slaves who otherwise do not have any hope of reviving their life, because they are bound to some master. Seeing no hope of a better future, committing suicide is an example of fatalistic suicide, where there is excess of regulation by the society in which one is a part. Okay. So, by demonstrating these four typologies of suicide, he says, in all the cases, it is never the individual, rather the society in which he is a part is responsible for the act of committing or killing himself or herself. Therefore, suicide is a pure case of a social fact and a legitimate subject matter of sociology. Okay? Roles of sociological method is a very large space where he discusses many things. How to discover social fact which we are experiencing ourselves, how to detach ourselves from social fact and study them from outside, from objectively. So this is in a nutshell, very chumbak kind of, these three founding fathers of sociology. In fact, I have not done justice. Each of them demands at least more than 2 long hours of lecture. So, but however, I have tried to touch all of them very briefly, touch and go kind of discussion. So, any questions on that? Anything you feel like? Yes, sir.
Sir, there is a statement I've read somewhere that Emile Durkheim in his book Society, which was released in 1897, he states that stronger social control among Catholics resulted in lower societies. And right now you explained that fatalistic societies are those which are caused due to too much regulation. And we know that social control is actually regulating society through various means. So isn't it contradictory that fatalistic societies which are caused due to too much regulation is a type of society Emile Durkheim says. At the same time, he also says that stronger social control in Catholics resulted in lower suicide rates.
Okay. He says that solidarity and integration among Catholics is high. Yeah, quite enough to accommodate individual aspirations and give individual members a kind of cushion and support so that he does not commit suicide. Therefore, the propensity, the tendency towards suicide among Catholics are less. Okay. This is an ideal situation. In situations which are not ideal, even in the same Catholic society, if the degree of solidarity and integration becomes too tight, uncomfortably tight, to not allow space to individual member to breathe, to feel the freedom of living, then again that will lead to fatalistic suicide. In ideal circumstance, Catholics are better integrated with the collective. Therefore, they have less suicide. In one place he says so. At other place he says, where the integration with the collective is uncomfortably very high and very tight, where people feel suffocated to be part of the system, they might commit suicide. Like slaves being tied to the system of slavery. Slavery might be good for the masters, but slavery has never been good for the slaves. So for a slave, it is uncomfortably high control, high integration. He doesn't want to, but he do not have any say. Therefore, he is involuntarily subjected to the control of the slavery system. And in order to free himself from the control, he commits suicide. It's about degree. It's about difference in degree. I also forget another one thing. Elementary forms of religious life, where Durkheim makes a distinction between sacred and profane, and says religion is nothing but the worship of society itself. Therefore, religion is also a social fact. Another legitimate subject matter of sociology to be studied. Okay. He demonstrated this by his study from secondary sources of some Australian Aboriginal tribes, and he comes to the conclusion that totemism, which is practiced in Australian Aboriginal communities, that in essence totems do not have any inherent power, but rather it is the social power, the power of the collectivity, collective conscience, which is represented through the totem, and the totem is worship. Therefore, worship of totem or totemism is nothing but the worship of the society itself without knowing it. Therefore, even religion is also a purely sociological subject matter. Are you getting my point? So the attempt is to establish everything and anything under the sun as a subject matter of sociology. No harm. Sociology feels free to study everything. Okay, any questions? Should I? Yes, please. पूछो जो कभी नहीं पूछता है उसको पूछना चाहिए.
So Durkheim defined religion. He gave a definition of religion, and in the definition he defined religion as unified system of beliefs, practices related to sacred things. That is, things set apart and forbidden, belief and practices which unite in one moral community that is called church. All those who are there. In this definition, he is particularly avoided the reference of supernatural or godlike things. So, what is the reason that he is avoiding using these terms of God and
Because he says there is no God. Essentially, he says there is no God. What we are worshipping is just a representation of the collective conscience, the society itself. We are worshipping society itself in the name of God. The point is, कल मैं बाबा बन जाऊंगा, ठीक है? मान लो, मुझे तुम लोग कोई बाबा मानोगे? नहीं मानोगे? अगर मैं 50 स्टूडेंट को इकट्ठा कर लूँ, शिष्य, और बाबा बन के बैठूं, तब क्या होगा? 10 और ज्वाइन करेंगे, 10 से 20, 20 से 1000 हो जाएगा. एस्टेब्लिश बाबा, आसाराम बाबू. But the point is, the very first day, you were not likely to see me as a Baba, a God man. But when you see 50 other people, you started seeing the same God man in me. So rather, my Godmanship is not a gift of God, but the gift of the rest 50 disciples. वो माने इसीलिए तुम मान रहे हो. Are you getting my point? So a totem, a tree, an animal, or any representation of God is God because others say so. Otherwise, there is no reference to there is nothing supernatural. Okay, God supernatural कुछ है ही नहीं, सब natural, सब society को ही पूजा करते हैं अलग अलग symbolic representation के माध्यम से. That is the idea. Yes, sir. Madam.
Sir, you talked about Herbert Spencer by saying that he was a disciple. Herbert Spencer, that he was a disciple of Charles Darwin. Means he was a follower influenced by Charles Darwin, and he borrowed his laws from the book Origin of Species.
Yes.
In that we talked about that हार्बर्ट स्पेंसर ने कहा कि किसी भी सोसाइटी को रन करने के लिए और उसकी एनालॉजी ऑर्गेनिज्म से डेवलप की और कहा कि सारे पार्ट्स का एक समन्वय में काम करना जरूरी होता है. तो सर क्या हम इस बात को एक बेसिस की तरह देख सकते हैं स्ट्रक्चरल फंक्शनिस्ट पर्सपेक्टिव के उदय का, मतलब स्ट्रक्चरल फंक्शनिस्ट पर्सपेक्टिव के उदय के एक कारण के रूप में इसको देख सकते हैं इस थॉट को?
Yes, structural functionalism came later on. So whatever comes later cannot claim to ignore whatever has already come out earlier. Whatever comes later is just a accumulative consequence of what already has been said earlier. So it is not that you don't find traces of evolutionism in functionalism, structural functionalism. Only difference is evolutionism say that change happens by unfolding of potential, which is more or less automatic. Structural functionalism say change happens not because of unfolding but because of malfunction in certain subsystem. If one subsystem fails, that leads to chain reaction among all subsystems, and subsequently in due course of time the whole system changes itself or adapts itself to a new kind of situation. That is what structural functionalism says. But yes, I do say, I completely, absolutely agree with you. Social Darwinism does contributed in a major way to the development of structural functionalism, which is a 20th century development. Yes.
सर एक सवाल मेरा है सर, अगर इन तीनों को हम देखते हैं तो तीनों की मेथडोलॉजी प्रत्यक्षवादी पॉजिटिविज्म दिखाई देती है, लेकिन
आइडिया इज टू कॉपी द मेथड्स ऑफ नेचुरल साइंस.
जी सर. एंड नेचुरल साइंसेज जैसे कि मोस्टली ये जाना जाता है कि पश्चिम मेटेरियलिस्टिक है, तो पॉजिटिविज्म भी मेटेरियलिस्टिक अप्रोच रखता है. ये ट्रांसेंडेंटलिज्म को नकारता है. लेकिन जब सर हम कॉम्ट को देखते हैं तो वो पॉजिटिविज्म को एक ह्यूमैनिटी के रिलीजन के रूप में डिफाइन करना चाह रहे हैं. सर वो बस डिबेट वहीं तक रहती है, आगे स्पेंसर एंड डर्कहाइम उसको कंटिन्यू नहीं करते हैं. तो सर ये क्या लैकिंग ऐसा है? ये सवाल इसलिए और भी सर मैं पूछना चाहता हूँ क्योंकि भारत को ऐसा माना जाता है कि यहाँ स्पिरिचुअल सोसाइटी है, एंड व्हेन दिस फिलोसफी हैज केम टू इंडिया देन दे काउंटर इट. विनय कुमार सरकार इज टॉकिंग अबाउट ट्रांसेंडेंटल पॉजिटिविज्म कि हम चेतना को अलग करके नहीं रख सकते, उसको जोड़ के हम देखेंगे.
तुमने वो किताब दिया क्या?
नहीं सर. तो सर ये डिबेट सर कॉम्ट में ये लगता है कि कुछ ऐसा भ्रम है कि मैं मटेरियलिस्टिक कितना हूँ और कितना ह्यूमनिस्टिक हूँ कि वो रिलीजन की ओर जा रहे हैं. तो सर इसको थोड़ा सा सर डिफाइन करिए.
Yes, look, as I said, 2-3 things we have to keep in mind. जितने भी आउटस्टैंडिंग इंटेलेक्चुअल हो, all outstanding intellectuals are product of their time and circumstances. Nobody can operate independent of the place and the situation he is in. So Comte and more, almost all founding fathers, they were a product of their time. First thing. Second thing, Comte had a miserable career. He was a frustrated man. So it is very likely that towards the end, जो आप जिंदगी भर नकारते रहे, लास्ट में आके उसी को रीअफर्म करें, है ना? वो जिंदगी भर रिलीजियन, स्पेकुलेशन, थियोलॉजी को नकारते रहे एंड पॉजिटिविज्म एडवांस करते रहे. Probably towards the end he thought that okay, whatever I say and do, I cannot remove the relevance of religion from people's life. Therefore, let me propose an alternative religion in the name of positivism. And this positivism will have nothing to do with supernatural. Rather, it is focused on this world, natural world, which is verifiable and scientifically amenable to study. So this kind of religion जो बात करता था, वो कहता था कि there will be a positive directory. There will be a institute of society of positivism, and all the sociologists, scientifically oriented sociologists, will be the creative directors of institute of positivism. Are you getting my point? So he borrowed the idea religion, borrowed the word religion, but he continued to reject the idea of religion. He just borrowed the idea to give it more contemporariness, to to enable it to become quickly popular among the masses. Even that didn't happen. Even that also didn't happen in his time. Religion of positivism. That also didn't happen. But religion of positivism should not give us the impression that he became a pro-religious, pro-theological or speculative thinker. He continues to be scientific and say, my religion of positivism is actually a rejection of all existing religious dogmas and theologies, which are not based on science, which are not based on scientific methods of knowing. Am I convincing?
जी सर.
सर स्पेंसर और दुर्खेम स्पेंसर और कॉम दोनों पॉजिटिविस्ट थे सर, तो क्या मेजर डिफरेंसेस क्या थे उन दोनों के पॉजिटिविज्म में? पॉजिटिविज्म तो दोनों का अलग अलग.
No, Spencer was not a positivist.
सर शुरुआत में
Commonality being, Comte भी चाहते थे कि यूनिवर्सल लॉज बने अबाउट सोसाइटी एंड सोशल लाइफ. स्पेंसर भी चाहते थे यूनिवर्सल लॉज, all encompassing grand theories about society. However, the way in which these theories are to be made are very different from between Comte and Spencer. Spencer was a believer of evolutionary theory. Comte was a believer of transformation through positivism. That is how I conceptualize the difference between them. So is that all?
Yes sir.
Did you enjoy?
Yes, sir.
Are you sure?
Yes, sir.
If I can keep you engaged for 2 hours, nearly 2 hours, then I am becoming a good orator. I have a good future. So what next? What is your program, ma'am?
Thank you so much, sir, for providing us with such valuable knowledge. Now, I would like to call Rohit Patel Bhaiya to please present the memento to sir.